One last one, because I want to see what the yarn does, and then we will put these water molecules to rest. Oh, I like the yarn. That's cute. Okay, so this is where I have to admit I'm really impressed with AI. Like that is just something that I couldn't do on my own, or maybe I could with really elaborate 3D procedurals and textures. So I think this is pretty neat. And again, if we wanted to duplicate it so that it was accurate water molecules or whatever other molecule you're interested in, that's where it would take a lot of work from a professional, again, to create the correct 3D textures or hand draw these things so that it took this look but had the accuracy that is needed. Hi, my name is Nicolle Fuller. I'm here with Science Studio. We are a science communication visual design company. So we put together animations, illustrations, and designs to communicate science. So we get to work with a ton of great scientists, engineers, and companies and nonprofits who need to communicate their science, whether it's to the public, to interested listeners like you all, to investors, to people who are reviewing grants. There's so many reasons. And we love talking to lots of different audiences. So today, we're excited to talk more directly to scientists and engineers who need to create this material. And we've been on this little roll talking about AI, trying to decide if it is actually a useful tool at this point for producing content that communicates science. And it's going to be an ongoing question. We think that changes will come quickly as more databases of scientific literature and images are added to a lot of these AI generators. But for now, we're working with what we've got. Today, we are focusing specifically on Adobe's Firefly. So yes, there are a ton of great image generators out there. We've looked previously at Dolly, the ChatGPT program, and then we've also in our blogs, which we'd love to invite you to check out. In the description, there's links to that. We've also looked at Midjourney, which produces incredible results, but we have some reservations about a lot of the terms and conditions. So for right now, we're not looking at that, but we'd love to hear from you all what you're interested in the comments. And as you're listening to this, definitely let us know what you like, what you'd want to hear more of, because this is a new endeavor for us talking to you all, and we're excited to be here. So today, I'm just going a little bit further. I'm trying really hard to produce something from AI that can be used straight out for more presentation materials, editorial uses, conceptual pieces that want to evoke a scientific idea, so they don't need quite as much accuracy as some of our other diagrams, mode of action diagrams, figures, and journals, that sort of thing. So we looked at this previously, but we're looking at it again today. I've got some really specific prompts, and we'll see where we end up. It's quite possible that we might come back to what we've kind of been settling on so far, that it looks fantastic. The image generation apps out there, what they produce is incredible. But as you look at it in more detail, you see more and more things that just won't pass the test that we all need to adhere to as science communicators to make sure that we're putting out truthful materials that help advance science knowledge and don't miscommunicate, confuse, etc. So anyway, let's jump in and look at what we've got. Again, we're looking at Adobe Firefly's program for today because we've liked what they've had available for style and composition idea generation. So I think that's one of the big reasons I want to look at it, because even if it's not the best one for producing end content, it seems like it's a really powerful tool as a starting point, perhaps to talk further with a professional illustrator or designer when you're ready and at that point. So let's jump in. And today I wanted to look at some really basic prompts from the standpoint of somebody who's a science illustrator designer. And so Today, we're starting out with this one in Adobe Firefly. I was just curious what would happen if I asked it to create water molecules scientific illustration. So it definitely creates something that looks like water molecules. It looks good. It's pretty. But anybody who remembers their basic chemistry from high school will realize that these are completely inaccurate. There's not a single one here that is an actual water molecule. Yes, it has water in the image. The little spheres that are supposed to be our atoms look like water, but that's not what we want. So just let's click at this a little bit further. So I wanted to see if we could get a little more accurate. Okay, so I closed this. So I did some of this ahead of time, so we didn't have to wait for it to chug quite as much. So create water molecule scientific illustration. That's what I typed to get these. So I'm going to forward to add in the next prompts I did, which is I added in with oxygen and hydrogen, which unsurprisingly, I suppose Adobe Firefly has no idea what to do with. It's like oxygen and hydrogen. Sure, we'll just add in more spheres, which I guess, maybe the good thing is that there are different sizes here. So we have size that perhaps could be more like the oxygen molecule compared to the hydrogen molecule, but they're all bound together in all sorts of different ways in a way that means nothing when it comes to actual water molecules. So again, I added an extra prompt. I'm just quickly clicking through here. So let's click forward to see what I added next. This is where it gets interesting, to me at least, perhaps. Hopefully to you all. Let me know again in the comments. So I added in a structure reference. So a lot of the programs now let you do this, and Adobe Firefly does as well. It makes it really easy. You can upload an image to tell the program what you want the structure of the image to look like. So I will go ahead and show that to you in just a minute. As you'll see, our image really didn't improve much though, so for what it's worth. But let's go, and I wanted to see what it would look like if I did it on PowerPoint. Because when I create images, I use Photoshop and Illustrator and 3D programs like Cinema 4D. And a lot of people who are actually in the lab doing the science, all you researchers out there, are often not using all of those programs because, you've got other stuff to worry about and do. And so I wanted to see what we could do if we just did PowerPoint. So I did super simple water molecules. So we've got this here. So I just created this really quickly. All of you are probably stronger at PowerPoint than I, but I just use our little circles, change the shape color to red. Okay, I just did the outline there. I don't want the outline. I want the fill. So we're going to do that to red. And then we did the same with the water molecules. So we did some more circles for, oops, I said water molecules, my mistake. Sorry, the hydrogen. So we're going to add our little hydrogen. And so then we get closer to the famous Mickey Mouse shape, right? So let's see, let's copy and paste the oxygen. We've got our nice little triangular geometry there. We've got our angles going on. We've got some that have a hydrogen molecule in the back and in the front, one that's looking down more from a different angle. Anyway, so I went ahead and I saved this out. So I went here and I went save exports. And I exported it. Let's see, change file type. And we just wanted a JPEG. Can be super simple. You could also use a PNG and saved as. So that's something I already did. So we're just going to go back to Adobe Firefly. And that's where, so I can upload image. And I uploaded this water molecule image. So again, very simple. Just wanted the basic shapes. And that's what I uploaded here. And I told it to create water molecule scientific illustration with oxygen, hydrogen, same exact prompt with a structure reference. And it really didn't look that much better. So let's see what I try next. We're going to go forward. And then I tried show oxygen and hydrogen bonding. That didn't help. Although we do see some of the reference image starting to show through here. So we do see some of these shapes in the configuration that we want for a water molecule, showing the oxygen as the larger one and the hydrogen. but it's still not what we want. It's not anywhere close to a water molecule. So let's go for it again. So here I said, create realistic 3D image based on structural reference. So I was trying to get it to pay more attention to the structure reference. These are what it thinks of as a realistic 3D image. Again, it doesn't have anything to do with what we want. And so I realized I needed to be a little bit more precise about my language. I was telling it to be more realistic as far as what I understand water molecule to look like. I wasn't telling it to really honestly look like the cartoon image that I created, but in a different style. Okay, so we're going to go forward again, and then we get a little bit closer. So what I said here was create realistic 3D image of water molecule based on structure reference using the red and white color from structure reference. So I told it to keep the colors, and it's looking a lot better for the color. But unfortunately, now we're back to this weird interpretation of what Adobe Firefly thinks of as a molecule. So it's in no way accurate. But if you're not versed in science and not thinking about it all the time, you would say, oh yeah, that's some sort of molecule chemistry thing without thinking about it. But those of you who live this are like, oh my gosh, that's so wrong. So I think we're back to the point again where it feels like this isn't going to be usable. Nobody who is a scientist who's, say, talking about water purification is even going to want to use this as a background image. But it could be something to use as a starting point to share with a professional illustrator when you've gotten to a point where you have a project that feels worth that commitment and time and energy. And then since we do have this starting point, and one thing that I've talked about before with Adobe Firefly that I do really like is that it is really good at letting you play with different styles. So let's see what happens if we play with that. Although before we do, let me see what happens if I back off the strength of the structure reference. Let's see. So I went almost all the way down to nothing. So I don't know if it'll go back to the somewhat, oh, that's actually not that bad. Ah, interesting. Maybe all we needed to add in was the red and white color reference, and the structure image isn't actually helping us much. I don't know. Let's put it in the middle and see what happens. So much of this is really playing at this point. And so some of the things that we found that AI image generation is really good for, even beyond this, is more so just like filling in images. So say if you have a photograph and you need to fill in the background, it works really well for that type of thing. All right, so we have this image. It's kind of, in my mind, more of the same. It looks cool, it looks shiny, it looks molecular, but it actually has nothing to do with any realistic structure. But just for playing, let's see what it looks like if we play with some of these different styles. I've never looked at synthwave. I have no idea what this is. Let's see. So if we click on that, it adds this synthwave down here. And then we click generate. Let's see what that comes up with. Ah, that's interesting. I expected it to redo the style of the image that it had. So basically keep the layout, but just change the look of it. But it actually totally rearranged the composition. And now it's even further away from what we want. We've got some sort of like molecular lattice here, which again has no basis in reality if you are a material scientist. But let's try a different one. Let's see, we've got all these different versions. Let's try materials. What's under materials? Oh, claymation. I'm curious about that. Let's see what happens with claymation. Okay, to me, that does not look at all like claymation. That looks more like plasticized 3D material shaders. But it did give us a different look. We've got a sticky bubblegum thing going on. Okay, let's try something like fabric. That hopefully will give us and I'm going to take off claymation because I don't want the combination of the two. Wow. Okay, when it said fabric, I was expecting more like fabric quilting art. I was not expecting, oh, you know what the problem is? It's because I have this word realistic 3D image in here. So let's see if I take that out, if we get more of like a fabric art look that I was expecting. Okay, let's just review. We're asking it to a water molecule, which it really doesn't understand what that means. And nope, it still is the shiny bauble. That's too bad. I was hoping for something really different. Let's try something else. Paper mache. Hopefully that'll give us a different look. Let's try the paper mache. Ooh, they have a yarn one. That might get me closer to the fabric look I was thinking of. Okay. Huh. That's interesting. Okay. Now I'm going to see what happens. Okay, we've got create image of water molecule based on structure reference using the red and white color from structure reference. Okay, we've got the red and white. But flatten the images to reduce shading. Let's see what happens there. Let's try it. And so for a lot of these things, as I've said in some of the previous videos that we've done, is that I'm starting to realize that I use a lot of words like flatten the images, reduce shading, reduce saturation, and some other different style references. Okay, this didn't quite get what I wanted because they're still spherical, which, makes sense because we asked to do molecules. But anyway, so I use a lot of vocabulary that I've learned over the years from doing all of this art and design. And so we'll be adding those to some AI tips that we'll have on our website. So when we have those available, we'll make sure that we link to them in the description. So check those out. So anyway, the fun thing about this is that it's so totally different from what we started with. And so it's a interesting practice just to see if it kind of shakes up your creative juices and gets you thinking in a way that you might not have expected to, and maybe get some ideas going. And then this sort of thing, again, as I've said before, in some ways, the weirder you get sometimes, the farther away from reality. It's like it allows everybody this like, okay, I get it. This is conceptual and editorial. This isn't meant to be accurate scientific illustration depictions, that you have more leeway that way. So that is something to think about as you're creating this. Like I personally would feel much more comfortable using this as a background image, say in my PowerPoint slides or on my social media, than I would an incorrect looking glossy 3D model. So, okay, one last one because I want to see what the yarn does, and then we will put these water molecules to rest. We'll let them evaporate. Oh, I like the yarn. That's cute. Okay, so this is where I have to admit I'm really impressed with AI. Like that is just something that I couldn't do on my own. Or maybe I could with really elaborate 3D procedurals and textures. And so I think this is pretty neat. And again, if we wanted to duplicate it so that it was accurate water molecules or whatever other molecule you're interested in, that's where it would take a lot of work from a professional, again, to create the correct 3D textures or hand draw these things so that it took this look but had the accuracy that is needed. But again, I love, oh, look, and I just saw this one. This one actually has, but it's reversed. It's got the red where the white of the hydrogen should be rather than but still, that's pretty neat. I think it's cute. And I do want to point out that that's another hiccup that we've found with AI so far, is that a lot of these things, they don't output, even the Adobe ones, at least from our initial testing, and I could be wrong about this, they don't put these different pieces on different layers. So if I or my team was creating this illustration, each one of these pieces would be on what's called a different layer, which means that you could take the red balls, separate them, move them around, recolor them really easily, where the underlying, say, white yarn circles are on their own layer, and they can also be shifted separately, resized, recolored, and that's just not possible. These are producing flat images, which is wonderful that it's so fast, but that's one of the downsides, is that you don't have that flexibility to make changes like that. So yeah, so thank you for joining me on this little adventure, seeing what's possible trying to create water molecules. I had really wanted to look at some, I'll just give you a sneak peek at blood cells inside capillary. So maybe I'll give you a sneak peek, and if you're interested, let me know in the comments and we can do this one again later. So, I gotta sign in. Okay, one or more words may not meet user guidelines and were removed. So blood cells inside capillary. I'm so curious which words were flagged. I would expect blood, that it thinks that that's somehow violent, and so it removed that. But clearly there's blood cells here still. Even if some of them are a little wonky, they're there. And inside, I don't know. It's interesting. So you'll see here that what I had in mind was a really simple blood vessel image. And when I say simple, let's see, and I'll pull it up for you in a minute here. As you'll see, this is kind of a standard medical science illustration image looking inside a blood vessel. And so if you compare it here, we have some of that going on where you can tell it's inside a vessel, but there's a lot of strange things that it's added in. And then like this one, it seems like AI really likes to make things almost look like a forest, which is beautiful, but is adding details that don't help tell our story. So again, we could go on, we could look at different styles. We could look at what happens if we try to change this word to vessel, blood vessel, or to vein or artery, and see what happens. But maybe we'll save that for another day because we've been talking for a little bit. Thank you so much for joining me today. And please, again, let us know what you find interesting in the comments. And if you liked this content, it'll help us out a ton if you hit the like button. And yeah, keep checking back and check out in the description for links to our blog and where we have more content that will help you on your journey. Okay, thanks so much.